Bit by bit, my living situation had improved. I could afford heat, at least 2 meals a day, and warm socks. Those comforts came at a cost. A bullet wound in my shoulder was still healing up from a previous encounter. The company I worked for offered magic-laced medicine that I could afford, but better let things heal on their own. A deep ache from my leg bothered me. It got to the point that I knew I needed to get a checkup before working again. I hated needing to see the doctor for old wounds, simply because costs aren't cheap. After this checkup, I might not be able to afford heat for the rest of the colder seasons this year. I wasn't certain what sort of creature Dr. Philo was. He looked human enough. I called to see if he had any open times for an appointment, but he told me he could swing by in a few hours. He was very busy treating supernatural creatures and sometimes humans like myself. He was also always on the move, so it was easier to see him outside his clinic. He's been by my place 3 times in the past 2 years when my legs got too bad to deal with. The scar above the right knee looked redder than normal. My knee also felt weird. It made an unnatural creaking sound and sometimes popped out of place if I pushed myself too hard. My left leg needed to be wrapped with a special cloth. It had turned black, the darkness fading around my hip. I hated looking at the scars. I should be thankful that I was able to get my legs back, but they were a constant reminder of the day I lost the person I cared about most. Dr. Philo arrived with a few months' supply of cloth for the left leg. He needed to redo some painful spell work because the magic that kept my leg attached had been weakening. When I pulled magic from other sources through my body while on the job, it had messed with the spell that attached new flesh to old. "I hear you've been working again," he said after the treatments were finished. He often stayed for a few minutes to chat and get caught up. I always offered him a drink or a snack, but he refused, saying he didn't like sweet things, or like tea. Once he accepted a cup of coffee. He wore a mask over half his face and sounded as if he always had a sore throat. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen his full face before. He adjusted large glasses over the top of his mask and brushed aside light brown hair. I needed the money. I figured it was about time. I can't seem to get any easy jobs though. I shrugged. My legs hurt like hell. I dreaded the idea of staying in bed for a few more days to recover. I needed to get a job soon to pay for this treatment. Don't push yourself too hard. Paying off your debts is not worth your life. Have you found anyone to support you? He asked, looking around my barren and run-down apartment. No, I figured I needed to get myself back together before I dragged a person into my mess. And with scars like these, it's not as if I'll find someone who would be interested in a simple fling either. No friends? Nothing of the sort? He offered, almost sounding worried about me. I shrugged again. I was about to tell him that August offered to work with me whenever he was free. I didn't feel like boring him with my personal life, or lack of one. Go, make some friends, get some rest, call me if your pain increases, he said as he stood up, ready to leave. This was all advice I'd heard before. I paid what I could, then mentally flinched when I saw the rest of the amount I still owed. I promised I would take it easy as the doctor left to see another one of his patients. I did plan on staying in bed and resting for as long as I needed. However, 2 days later, I found myself sitting on a bench in a park 10 minutes away from my apartment. A job came in saying a handful of people saw some sort of large animal, and a young girl had gone missing shortly after the sightings. It wasn't confirmed a creature had been behind these events, but the corporation didn't like taking chances. The park was so nearby, I figured I would check it out. I walked over during the day looking for any kind of clues. The park led off into a short nature trail. I assumed if there was a creature, it would hang out in the trees. An entire day of searching led to nothing. Since monsters came out at night, I was stuck staying up late. Aside from some recent graffiti, nothing appeared out of place around the park or the trail. My legs ached from all the walking. I spent a few hours sitting on a bench, almost waiting for something to happen. I found out the hard way not to use my talents of seeing magic after my leg treatments. The migraines I got did not mix well with the leg pain, making them both unbearable. Speaking of something unbearable, my phone kept going off because August figured out how to send gifts. I should have blocked him. He would on occasion send a good cat gif in the mess of other memes that made it worth letting his messages go through. Is your girlfriend worried about you? A voice made me jump. A girl had silently walked behind the bench to see over my shoulder. She had gotten a glimpse of the random messages. I stood up to face her, honestly expecting a monster. Instead, I found a petite, dark-haired girl wearing a plain white dress. She even had sandals in this cold weather. She had her hands behind her back. Healing bruises spotted her arms. She looked anywhere between 16 and 19. She shouldn't be out in a dark park at this hour without a coat. Put my phone and wallet in my pants pocket, then took off my jacket. I offered it to her without hesitation. Where do you live? Do you need help getting home? I offered. She smiled in a way that looked very familiar. Her black hair and dimples made me think of August. She took my jacket, snuggling down into the warm collar for a moment. I'm not normally the kind of girl who lets strange men take me home, she joked in an overly sweet voice. I'll call you a cab, I said, not wanting her to get any ideas. By any chance do you have any siblings? I added. She shook her head, confused over the odd question. No, are you disappointed I don't have a sister? She suggested. It was as if she was trying to flirt. She was very bad at it, if that was her goal. No, you just look like a friend of mine. Must just be the hairstyle. Now come on, let's call a ride for you. The smile on her face appeared forced. I wasn't going along with the game she wanted to play. I started to walk down the pathway towards the park entrance with her following behind. My phone didn't want to turn on again. It sometimes shut off in the colder weather. What are you doing out at this time of night? I asked her as we walked. Oh, looking for monsters. How about you? She said, her sweet tone dropping slightly. I froze. Carefully, I turned my head towards her, my brain trying to work out if she was a threat. Some creatures looked like innocent weak humans to lure in their meals. She may be a monster ready to rip my heart out, or just a weird girl in the park because she had an interest in the occult. If I made a run for it, I risked leaving a poor girl stranded. If I didn't leave, then I also risked getting eaten. I wasn't aware of how right I was about the risk of being dinner for a creature. A burst of wind came down on us. I started to move to grab the odd girl to get her out of danger. My body was too slow. To my horror, a beast came down from the sky. In one lightning-fast movement, a black beak scooped her up around the waist. In 2 beats of its wings, it lifted back into the sky, tossing her into the air. Her small body was swallowed whole by the monster that recently started to stalk the park. It was a crow the size of a car with 3 glowing red eyes, but oddly enough, paws as legs. Like hell, I was going to let her get eaten like that. We stopped near a bench. I prayed I had enough strength to fight back in time to save her. Every living thing had magic. The amount depended on many different factors. I was in the middle of a park with countless plants, trees, and dormant insects, all with their own life force. That magic leaked into the air. It was a reason why some forests felt so strange to humans. If you knew how, you could ask to use the power nature held. Humans weren't built to handle magic. I still made a silent request to everything around me. I put out my will to take whatever was given. I then grabbed a hold of the bench that had been bolted into the stone walkway. A burst of power came through. I aimed for the glowing eyes in the sky, and threw the bench as hard as I could towards it. The metal and wood found its target. I heard the impact and saw the crow fall from the sky, screeching the entire way down. The backlash of using so much magic hit hard. My right knee popped out and I swore it felt as if it was going to come apart at the old scars. My arms burst with pain and the muscles cramped up. Each one of my hands curled uselessly. I forced myself forward towards the downed crow, hoping it wasn't too late to save the poor girl. I was in no condition to fight the monster if the bench flying into its face didn't knock it out. By sheer luck, the crow was still. My luck turned around in seconds when an even larger crow landed behind me. It screamed into the night, red eyes angrily glowing. Well, shit. I frantically ran through my brain, trying to figure out what the hell these creatures were. If you knew enough about a monster, there was a chance you could defeat it even if you were weaker. Nothing came to mind. Not a goddamn thing. I've heard of bad omen crows. They were oversized crows that appeared near cursed humans with bad luck to feed off of. Aside from that, no clue on how to kill them. Give me a damn break, I said to any higher power that might be listening. Again, my luck turned around in a way I never would have guessed. The larger crow let out a noise over something that was happening behind me. The knocked-out bird's eyes flew open as his chest feathers bulged outwards. It let out a strangled cry, then rolled on its back. My body felt cold when I saw a human shape literally rip its way through flesh, blood, and feathers. The girl stood, covered in gore. Her once white dress clinging to her, and my jacket was ruined. Sharp claws hung at her side. A white smile cracked her face in half. She shook the hair from her face and then grabbed her blood-soaked clothing. She ripped it off to stand in the cold wearing nothing but a sports bra and shorts. The larger crow started to move, knowing it wasn't wise to stick around. She didn't give it the time to flee. Within seconds, she was on the monster 10 times her size, claws and teeth ripping deep into the monster's body. I should have stayed at home that night. I took a few steps away, the pain slowing my movements. If I was lucky, I had enough time to get out of the park before she finished the one-sided fight. But I'm never lucky. She tackled me from behind, easily knocking us both over. I rolled on my back, ready to fight back. She quickly pinned down my arms, blood dripping from her stained face. Come on, darling, show me what you can do. You knocked down that chicken, didn't you? What else do you have up your sleeve? She said, her voice now lacking the fake sweetness she used before. She was crazy. Legit a nutcase. I've come across monsters that love nothing but fighting. She had acted as bait not to lure in humans to eat, but for other monsters. Since I showed a hint of skill, I was now the next target. This wasn't good. She took down the 2 crows in under 2 minutes. I couldn't fight my way out of this, and by the look in her eyes, I couldn't talk my way out of this either. How about you let go so we're on even terms? I suggested, praying to buy some more time. She let out a shrill laugh as if I told her the funniest joke in the world. Fight for it, she shouted. Her dimpled smile no longer appeared charming. I ran through my options, used every ounce of strength to pull my hands free. I slipped one wrist through her fingers because of the blood on her hands. She was covered with it. Something caught my eye. Dark patches on her neck showed through the deep red. I realized she had a black ring tattoo she had hidden under some sort of makeup. The fighting and wetness had rubbed parts of it away. With one hand free and seconds to act, I reached out to grab hold of her neck. A burst of magic came through the spell that kept her leashed. She screamed, showing off all her sharp teeth. Her nails dug into my wrists, but I pushed forward. Couldn't break this collar like I had with the bat monster. I could only force through one command. It hurt the both of us. White sparks of magic flew out into the grass, creating deep holes where it landed. She mentally begged me to stop what I was doing, and yet I still pushed. I fought with everything to let that one request sink into the spell. Something clicked between us, and I finally pulled back. She scrambled away on all fours, hissing like a cat. I stayed on the ground, barely able to breathe. My hands smoked from touching so much raw magic for so long. If she wanted to finish me off, she could have. What in God's name's going on here? A man's voice came as a flashlight beam landed on us. A set of police stood shell-shocked at what they saw in the park. 2 dead birds, me and the girl who barely appeared human. I groaned, hating dealing with cops. There are always so many awkward conversations and paperwork afterward. Any money the corporation may have paid for 2 monster crows to be killed would be directed elsewhere. Cover-ups cost money, after all. April, another voice came. I knew who was running up the pathway. She saw me and gasped. The cops refused to let her get closer, which I understood. They didn't know what was going on, or if the hissing blood-covered woman was dangerous. What a coincidence, I said in a shaken voice, and raised my good hand to wave at Evie. She worked as August's handler. It made sense she knew more creatures on a leash. If the girl who wanted to kill me wasn't one of them, she would know who her boss was. As it turns out, Evie was the nearest handler. When she heard the cops get called to the same park April said she was going, her handler asked Evie to go check in just in case. She later told me she dealt with April so often that she might as well be her official contract worker. I let Evie get things sorted with the cops. Just as I thought, there was going to be a lot of paperwork. Soon the cleanup crew arrived to collect the bodies of the crows and to do the basic medical treatments for us. April was fine. Evie and she got along very well. I saw her fussing over the smaller girl as if April was a younger sister. Finally, they made their way over to where I was sitting. "Say you're sorry for trying to kill him," Evie demanded in a stern voice. "Sorry for trying to eat your brains," April said, not sorry at all. "You wanted to eat my brains?" I answered, moving slightly further away from the pair. "Not wanted, I was going to. Not now though. I don't eat the brains of my friends, human or not," April said as it made my face flush. "Friends? How? When?" Evie questioned, shocked over the development. April gave a tooth-filled smile and I wanted to die. She should have just eaten me. "This human messed with my collar. He could have written anything into the spell in order to not kill him or for me to kill myself. Anything. And you know what he said? Let's be friends." Yeah, I wanted to die. Evie stared at me as if I was on the same mental level as April. She carefully took hold of the other girl who now was wrapped in a blanket one of the cleanup crews brought. "Just friends?" she asked, very weary of my motives. "Just friends. She's like a kid," I defended myself. "Oh, so we're grooming supernatural girls now?" Evie replied, hugging April tighter. "I'm too tired to be offended. If you think that's the case, you're free to keep her away from me forever. I may have forced the idea of being friends into the collar that keeps her under control, but she doesn't need to listen to that request if she doesn't want to." I tried to stand up to start going home, but my legs refused to work. I collapsed back onto the bench, too drained to move. "You're not ditching me that easily. You made a friend offer, so you can't back out now, sucker. For now, I want to eat some of that big-ass chicken. Leave your number with Evie. We'll hang." April was released so she could run over to one of the crow's bodies. She tore a good few mouthfuls off before the cleanup crew started chasing her off with threats of getting power washed. "I was just teasing you," Evie admitted. "April is a handful. She'll be hard to deal with if she decides to stick with this offer of friendship. It was either that or dead. I'm currently weighing my options." Why was there no such thing as an easy job? I couldn't get home on my own. Evie requested the help of the very confused cops who stuck around. They drove me home and pressed me for some answers. I promised them things would be explained by someone else. I was not in the state for a long conversation. I got let off the hook and collapsed into bed without changing my clothing. I ended the night not making a dime from the job. I needed to ask Dr. Philo back to reset my legs again because of the beating they took from the burst of magic I borrowed. Financial setbacks were better than dead. Sometimes only barely better than dead.